Welcome back to the Hoops Boys Pod. It is your boy Jet and my co-host CProc, and we got our two guest experts, Greg and Shad. And I want to get right into some burning topics, some hot topics around the league, some hot teams around the league, and I want to start out with the hottest team in the league right now, the Boston Celtics. In the beginning of the offseason, they had a lot of turmoil with, coaching soap operas in their organization. But that would have seemed to derail them. But they seem to have gotten better, and they're sitting on the top of the NBA with the best record. I have some stats right here. They're number one in scoring in the East, number one in the NBA for offensive rating and net rating, second in total threes, second in points per game, and they're the only team with 30-plus wins right now in the NBA. The Boston Celtics. So, gang, how do we feel about Celtics and how they've been able to stay on top?
I'm impressed that, what's his name, Joe Mazzulla? I'm impressed that, like, a random assistant, you had this whole thing with Udoka happen, get pushed out, eventually look like Shad called it early in this, when we were previewing the season, there was no way he was going to come back. And it certainly doesn't look like he's gonna, and it certainly looks like they don't need him. And they basically just promote an assistant, and that's been the steady hand that they needed to just keep the tracks greased, and they haven't missed a beat, and the consistency, because they've been up there the entire season so far, and they're not showing any signs of like slowing down or coming off this pace. They're just a well-oiled machine.
Shad, how do we feel about the Celtics?
The Celtics, they've surprised me. I knew they were good, but I didn't think they were the best team in the NBA, good. The coaching change, I thought would bring them down, a couple pecks. I think it actually probably lowers Udoka's kind of stock on, as a coach, because, they've picked off right where they left and probably are even better than where they were. But the Celtics, they didn't even have, one of their key players for a good portion of the year, Robert Williams. So that just shows, that they have great, team defense, great chemistry, without maybe their best defensive player, who could easily be a defensive player of the year candidate in a year or two. But Tatum looks like an MVP. Jaylen Brown looks like he's probably the best number 2 in the league, who could be a star on just about any other team. And, the pieces of like, Horford and Derek White and Smart and all those other pieces still have that chemistry. They don't look like they're tired. They don't look like they lost that hunger. And Joe Mazzulla, he is my, favorite for coach of the year, because I don't think anybody expected, him to, kind of do better what they did. I mean, regular season, it's NBA, doesn't really mean too much. But I mean, if they could do it in the playoffs, that's great. But I think they're doing great, and Joe Mazzulla deserves, my coach of the year vote right now.
I don't disagree with that. Not one bit.
Last but not least, Greg, how do we feel about the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I think this is rinse or repeat. I mean, they haven't missed a beat from last year. The questions about Udoka, it dawned on me, and I checked on this. This kind of goes to show the culture they now have there. One of their main rotation players is older than the head coach. So Al Horford is actually older than the coach. Point being,
come on.
They have a nice system in place. So, you have superstars, as Shad said, Tatum and Jaylen Brown, averaging almost 31 and 27 apiece, both shooting almost 50%. So this isn't a case of guys jacking shots up. They're versatile. They have their Brogdon, who they brought in, who's been an excellent addition. He's their third leading scorer off the bench. He's not even starting. And I mean, they run 8-9 deep. So I mean, they have just the recipe for versatility, depth, and star power. I mean, the question last year. Don't forget this time last year. This was fascinating. There were questions right now as should they break that team up. They had languished literally almost at 500 at this point last year, and look what they've done since. I mean, you go across the board. He brought up Williams hasn't even played more. Marcus Smart, whether you think he should have got or not, regardless, if you're in the conversation of defensive player of the year, they're just legit. I mean, they when somebody leaves, they play 9 or 10 deep. So I mean, they have ways to beat you on any given night. So I definitely think this is completely legit, and I think they're the most complete team in the league.
It was funny. You took the words out of my mouth a little bit, because just last year at one point we were talking about breaking this thing up and trading one of the stars, and which one do you trade, which one do you get more back for, and now now that's kind of like an inconceivable thought.
And from living up here, I watch more of them on a given night. I don't want to say like I ever sensed tension between Brown and Tatum, but you would have seen it. Now it almost seems, no pun intended, seamless. Some nights Brown's just got a hot hand. I think it was last night, 2 games prior. He scored 40, and not that Tatum didn't get his full complement of shots. It's just when one of them's got the hotter hand, it almost seems to me like the two of them have figured it out better together as well. It's not a competition anymore on who gets the most shots. It's, hey, we're really good. We got a bigger goal in mind. That's to win the title. And it seems like everybody has bought in. And you have to have that, obviously, at the NBA level. And it seems like they have.
The only other thing I get noticed, just kind of like picking some numbers apart, they're not exactly super stingy. I mean, granted, no one really is in today's NBA, but they are still outscoring their opponents by 6. So they are, at least by today's standards, a little stingy-ish as far as being able to lock down on defense when they need to, I suppose.
On that same point, it was something I forgot to allude to. I don't even think they've played nearly as well defensively this year as they have last year. Their offensive proficiency is a lot better. But again, now you bring Robert Williams back, and that's a game changer. I mean, if they're managing him right now, he's not playing back-to-backs. But if you get him playoff time at anywhere close to 100%, that completely changes the way a team attacks Boston. He changes. People are not anywhere near as free to go to the basket. He'll change that. So I actually think their upside has not been reached yet. I think there's a higher ceiling to gain for them.
James the Jet, what you got before we skedaddle along?
No, I like what Greg just said about that. Their offense being ahead of their defense right now, and maybe that's what they're holding on to unlock into the playoffs, because we seen what they did last year against Brooklyn. If they can put it all together come playoff time, it's going to be curtains for anybody they face.
Well, speaking of Brooklyn, I think that's next up on the docket. And there's a couple people on our little panel here. James the Jet and Greg, you guys always like to pick the Nets to go to the finals not too long ago. And now you guys have trailed off that a little bit. And they got out of the gate, not to the best start this year, but they changed things up. Booted Steve Nash out the door. I think it probably almost looks like Steve Nash was in way over his head a bit on this. Everyone thought like a big superstar former player, he'd be the one to right the ship and be that steady hand to guide a team full of just big superstar players. And since he's been gone, Jacques Vaughn's taken over, and they've been as hot can be. If it wasn't for the Celtics just being hot the entire season, the Nets would probably be the hottest team in the league, maybe. And that's is this now the Nets finally figure this out? Like we've said in the past a lot, the window's closing. They don't have much time because they've got these guys making a ton of money. They don't have any draft picks. The chemistry's not working, whatever the case may be. But now all of a sudden it is. So what have the Nets done in order to truly as it appears they have right now, wrote the ship and got back to looking like the Nets that everyone kind of thought they would be?
I mean, me personally, I don't think they righted the ship as most people think. I just think probably like a lot of the off season, off the court BS is gone right now. And Kyrie's been playing good. Kevin Durant's been out this world, but now he's hurt. So we'll see how they do kind of without him. Ben Simmons, he's got to get back to the Ben Simmons that was an all-star. He's averaging, I believe, only 7 points a game. He used to be somebody who used to average about 15, 16. So I think not until Ben Simmons kind of gets back to his all-star form that I don't think you could take the Nets that serious as a contender. Are they like a top, 5-6 team in the East? Of course, but I don't think you put them there with, the Celtics or the Bucks or even a team like the Sixers, that caliber. They have a lot of talent. Jack Vaughn's done a great job getting this team to kind of right the ship somewhat, but I think it's more kind of the off the court, off season stuff that they've had over the past couple of years that's kind of, derailed them has changed. I don't think on the court they're not nearly as good enough as people thought, they were the past, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it's been since they kind of got this core of all-stars together. But I'll give them credit. They're doing better than what they did at the beginning of the season with Steve Nash, but they're still not nearly as good as they need to be. And we'll see, how Kevin Durant actually comes back, how good he is. Has it take him a while to, get back to his, top 5 NBA player form? We'll see if Kyrie could, keep his, butt off of, TMZ for doing stupid stuff off the court. And we'll see if Ben Simmons actually wants to, play some offense and not scared to shoot because he's scared about, what people may say about him. So the Nets, let's wait and see. But are they better than last year? Yes. Are they as good as everybody thought they would be years ago? And are they contenders? No.
It's funny you bring up Simmons because during a recent game, little midseason showdown with Boston, they're pointing out a lot during the game, like the best rotation that they had during that game was Simmons playing center with just everyone around him being a shooter. So maybe Simmons is just something that Vaughn just has to tool around with to make work the way it needs to work.
I mean, he's definitely big enough to play the 5, and versatile enough. And if he can have the ball in his hands, and everybody around him can shoot, I think that's a tough lineup.
A little scary.
Yeah.
I just looked tonight. So a quick glance at the Nets. So I mean, I think last year, obviously, for a million reasons, COVID. Kyrie was playing at the end of last year, but that was such a mess. I mean, so it appears this year, he believes the NBA ball is round instead of flat again, which that's a good start, and that's number one. So, but if I look quickly, and I don't lose sight of this last year, I don't care what team in the league, how talented you are. There's 4 of their main players right now, which again, Kyrie played in the playoffs, but how in was he? It's hard to develop any chemistry. You have him on the floor. You have Joe Harris, who was a deadly shooter who was out last year in the playoffs. It was a huge loss. Ben Simmons didn't play. And even someone who's contributed, TJ Warren, since he's come in, has been a big factor. Like going into last year, and I would go with this again. Part of the reason I was so high in the Nets was their depth. Then all of a sudden you turned around and they're missing everyone, or this guy's hurt, or Kyrie, well documented all his issues. So, I mean, I think they have significant upside and still to be determined. Simmons had 13 assists tonight. And I think I'm almost positive that has to be his Nets high. he hasn't played that long with them. If he's starting to figure out his role, and let's be honest, he doesn't want to shoot the ball a ton. His perfect world is he doesn't have to be relied on to shoot threes. So if he figures it out in that kind of facilitator role, and they work forward as to determining where everyone fits, I think there is high upside in this team. I mean, a 12-game winning streak, which they had coming into last week in the NBA, is impressive no matter when it is, where it is. That's tough to do. So I think this team has a lot of upside. But again, way too early to be determined. But arrows up. I think they can be a factor. I do.
What about how far can that arrow go? Are they back in title contention, or are they still really just needing to take a backseat to Boston and Milwaukee?
I think contention-wise, they're in it. I mean, would I put them ahead of Boston right now? No. But, I still don't lose sight 2 years ago that when the Bucks won the title, if Durant's foot was literally 3 inches further behind the line, they beat Milwaukee. That's with Harden limping that series. I mean, they're not that far removed from that. Last year was a disaster. So I don't want to, we can all assess that easily. That it was the chemistry issues they had last year was an absolute nightmare. So whatever talent they had, and they were banged up, was going to circumvent all the issues they faced. That was a much maligned clubhouse last year. So they're there. I mean, I wouldn't put them ahead of Boston, no. But I mean, crazier things have happened. I don't think it's outlandish. This team, if they're healthy come playoff time, makes a run. Absolutely not. I mean, you still have superstars left and right. So I think they have a shot.
Well, being that we spoke up about some teams in the East, some top teams in the East, let's talk about the best teams in the West. The Nuggets with the two-time MVP, who's trying his hardest to three-peat with that award, and the Grizzlies with the high-flying act, Ja Morant and company. Both these teams right now have identical records, tied for first in the West. But I don't know. It's tough. I personally feel like the Nuggets are the better team, all-around team, but I love Ja and everything that he brings to the game. So, gang, how do we feel about the two top teams in the West? I guess we could talk about the Nuggets first.
It's funny, like we spoke on the last show as far as if the changing of the guard is to occur, which guard will change between these two teams. And I think the ball, proverbially, no pun intended, is very much in the court of Denver. I think they're a little bit more polished. I think Jokic's supporting cast, barring they're all healthy, of course, which is not exactly the most consistent thing in recent years. I think his supporting cast is a little bit more polished than Ja Morant's. So I would definitely give slight edge Denver. But as far as they're concerned, if they're healthy, they just have so many high-flying athletes and so much basketball pound for pound skill on the court. That's a tough out, and I think they definitely have a slight edge as far as being the proverbial favorite to if the Suns or the Warriors are to relinquish their crown out west. Crowns.
Shad, how do you feel about the Nuggets?
I think the Nuggets have the best, scoring 1 through 4 or 5. I think on any given night, anybody like in their starting rotation, probably 4 or 5 of them can give you 20 plus points. I do think they can play better defense than what people give them and people think of them. I just think the biggest question is if they can stay healthy. They do have players that have been known, to have big injury histories, like Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, people like that. So that could put a big strain on Jokic of him having to try to get, 30-point triple-double every night. You definitely don't want that come playoff time. But they do have younger guys that could step up if they need to, like Bones Highland, who could, come off the bench and give you a 20, 25, or maybe even be a starter if need be. They just got to remain healthy. They don't want to rely on like a lot of the old players that come off the bench, like DeAndre Jordan. Seems like he's been in the NBA for 20 years at this point. You kind of want to use him sparingly. And you just want to stay healthy. But I think, there's other contenders in the West I think, can give them a run for their money, such as, New Orleans, but I think they're just too young. I think the Clippers, their chemistry has been, very up and down, and you don't know who's playing on any given night. So I think Denver is probably the number one team right now. And I think Golden State has completely jumped off the map. I'm not even sure if they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're struggling in that play-in as we speak. New Orleans is a great surprise, though. Well, I know we're not talking about them, but they're not bad.
Honorable mention.
So I just checked up. So when I watched Denver recently, it was interesting. I think it was the two LA teams, the Lakers and the Clippers, and you could tell they made a concerted effort that they weren't going to let Jokic beat them offensively. In past years, you would have won by 20 doing that, unless Jokic shot at line. It's really interesting to me, and I was just curious because I was like, wow, the Lakers the other night, he took 5 shots, went 5 for 5, they won by 13. Now we know how prolific he is, 25 a game. There's been 9 games this year he scored under 20. They're 8-1. Just think about that and how good he is. So the point is, with you have Murray back now and Gordon Moore as a role, and they're role players. If they can do that, and teams can't double and triple and guard everything against Jokic, and he can distribute like that, they are absolutely lethal. So again, I noticed that lately. That's why I looked it up. It's 8-1 when he's under 20 points. That's crazy to me with as much as he does. So I think upside, when you have a guy at that level, I think they, as we spoke about, I think they have to be the favorite right now. Again, have to be healthy, because that changes what teams can do to Jokic. When he doesn't have to score 30 a game, again, 8-1 would be, you extrapolate that over a whole year, you're winning almost 70 games. So, I think health is the key to them. But if they are, I think they are definitely going to be the team to beat come playoff time. And well coached as well. Malone has always been a very good coach.
All right, being that we spoke about the Nuggets, let's talk about their identical record to the Grizzlies. Partner, how you feel about the Grizzlies?
To me, and we spoke about this before, it's just a matter of the overall value of Ja Morant's supporting cast to me. Like, are they ready? Like, we know Ja is out, like way out in left field as far as his elite status in the league right now. Nobody's slowing him down, nobody's catching up to him. But like, is the Baines, the Jacksons, Brooks, Tyus Jones. I mean, if you look down their stats, they got 6 guys average double figures, another 2 guys knocking right at the door of that number. Solid numbers all around. That there's a good balance of guys with versatile stats, so their points, their rebounding, their assists. Defensively, they're actually not looking that horrible as far as similar to what we spoke on with the Celtics. The Grizzlies are giving up 111. They're scoring 116. I mean, 111 doesn't look like you're locking anybody down, but you're still outscoring your opponent by five a game. That's a solid win on most nights. So like, to me with the Grizzlies, it's just, we look at Denver supporting cast, and the big thing obviously is health. the Grizzlies don't necessarily have to worry about health so much. I mean, obviously Jaren Jackson has a bit of a history there, but for the most part, that's not so much the concern with them. The concern with them is like, are these guys ready to support John Morant in the manner he needs to be supported in order for this team to take a significant step forward as far as being to the finals and making a significant legitimate run at the title. That's just the thing to me. Like, which one of these guys is going to be Ja's wingman to help him push this team to the next level? Because Ja will have a night off. Now, I mean, John Morant's night off is still probably 25 points, but it could those nights are going to happen. So he's definitely going to need some supports. And he is streaky one. He does tend to be a little bit of a streaky shooter. So
for sure.
Even if he still scores 25 because he got to the line, freaking 15 times. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, can this collective bunch be what he needs them to be, like Jokic gets out in the Mile High?
Shad, how you feel about the Grizzlies?
I just think they're too reliant on Ja Morant. And Ja, I like him, but I don't think he's been the most durable player. I think because of his size. He's not like terrible like a Derrick Rose or anything, but like he just seems like he's gonna miss, I don't know, 20 games a season, just by the way he plays. But it's kind of like if he gets injured in the playoffs and he has to, miss, 3, 4, 5 games of a series, do you see anybody in that, on that roster really that could kind of take over and average 25 points a game and get you like 6, 7 assists? I'm not really sure. I think everybody on that team is kind of good role players. I think you need not a superstar, but you need like a star that's like kind of like maybe a borderline all-star type of player on that goes along with your superstar to be like, one of the top contending teams. Bane, I think he's more of a number 3. Like I said, I've said previously, I think he's more of just like a person that is a spot up shooter. When the tension's not on him, he'll get you these points. But when the defense is kind of drawn on him, can he average these, big numbers? I don't think so. Same thing with Brooks, same thing with Jackson. I just think it's, almost reminds me of like one of those like 90s Spurs team with their role players. They're good role players, but are they stars? Especially stars on like other teams? No. But Ja, he's different. He's right now, easily a top 10 player in the league. So he's going to carry you to, like close to 50 wins, and he's going to get you to the second round alone. But getting past those teams with more depth, more scoring, it's going to just, the Grizzlies just, I don't know, that team is just missing something. And if it's not like that scoring that I'm talking about, just something that I can't put my finger on. Not to take anything away from them, though.
Greg, how do we feel about the young and talented Grizzlies?
I'm actually higher than Shad with Memphis. Just obviously Morant. I mean, that goes without saying. That's like saying if Jokic goes out for Denver, most teams in the NBA, minus maybe a few. I mean, Ja is the show, and we all know that. So he has to be healthy, number one. But something interesting to me is that they can shoot the ball. They have five of their main rotation players shoot better than 35% from 3, and that's not counting Ja, who's around 31, and even Dylan Brooks is about 33. Point is, they can shoot the ball. It's all has to flow through Ja. We know that. But assuming Ja is healthy and in a wide open West, I mean, this is still one of the youngest teams in the entire league. I see them getting better. They're in an 8-game winning streak now, and I don't think that's purely coincidental. I think now that Jackson is getting more minutes and becoming more of a factor, I don't think this team has reached their ceiling. And I don't see any overwhelming favorite in the West. So just me personally, it wouldn't shock me one bit to see them make the finals. It would not. Again, all centers around Ja, fully understand that. But when he is there and healthy, good luck. I mean, there's not many people are going to stop him. And if he can kick out to 6 different guys who can knock it down from 3, that's a formula for success.
Who's the guy you would pinpoint as the next man up behind Ja?
I mean, Bane's going to be probably the second scorer. I like I said earlier, I think Jackson to me though he's kind of the more offensive Draymond Green to me. So Jackson to me will determine where they're. Again, I understand it's not your necessary, but with Ja at the 1, with the way he's able to penetrate the lane and kick here and there. I mean, Bane is that good. So if Bane has Ja, I don't see that slowing down. And Jaren Jackson to me. But one more thing just quickly is something that I've liked, but Tyus Jones is playing really well as his backup. Now, again, they're not winning the title with Tyus Jones, but Tyus Jones has given them really good minutes, turned into a nice ball player. Same thing. He's shooting 40% from 3. So even sometimes if they go to a 2-point guard alignment in a positionless league, it's what they're trying to. Again, not Ja, but the point is they can get by for stretches. They can get by for minutes in a game or games at a time with even without Ja. So I like this team, and I think the upside we're almost, I feel like, talking about them like they're over the hill as far as they're still without looking, they have to be one of the 3 youngest teams in the league, top 5. So I think there's still a lot of upside for them.
Partner, what you got? You think do you think it's Bane? Do you think it's Jackson?
Always like the guard big combo. So I would want it to be Jared Jackson. I think he has a lot of ability. He's really good on the defensive end. He can stretch the floor because he can shoot. I just, with defenders like that like to block shots, they always have a tendency of being in foul trouble. And I think that's one reason Jaren Jackson doesn't really get to stay on the floor that much, is because he's constantly in foul trouble. If he can clean that up a bit and be more consistent on offensive end, I think he could be that second goer that Memphis needs to get them over the hump.
Shad, you got a vote?
As far as the second scorer?
Yeah.
I think it's Bane, but like I said, he strikes me as just a jump shooter, not too much of a playmaker for others. He's more just a scorer. And I don't even think he's like a great scorer. I think he's just more of a standstill shooter. Is not like a great shot creator for himself, but he relies a lot on Ja to get him open. I don't know. This team kind of reminds me of the 76ers, what was that, 2001, or relies on one player. And then outside of that, you got a bunch of players who, play great defense, great role players, but God, you're going to struggle scoring, especially long term.
Yeah.
Go to the finals, surprise the heck out of Boston. Ja drops 50, and then the Celtics sweep the rest of the series play.
Again, they do it. They have guys who can shoot the ball. That's the thing they do, and that's it's one of the main goals in basketball, right? So,
get the ball in the goal.
Yeah, they have guys who can shoot it. They do, and Jackson too. It's funny. We think of him. Oh, he's been injured. He's still only 23, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd think, he's. In NBA terms, it sounds like he's been there forever. He's only 23 still. So,
speaking of shooting and scoring, there's some players that have been doing quite a bit of that of late. So, James, the Jets got a list of players that we need to highlight in the show out spotlight. Partner, take it away.
All right. There's been pretty crazy performances in the NBA lately. And I'd be remiss not to mention Donovan Spider Mitchell, who had almost a 70-point triple-double in a comeback win. 71 points, 8 rebounds, and 11 assists, to be exact. One of the craziest performances I've ever seen personally. on TV. I think the only other one I can think of is Kobe's 80-point performance. Pretty tremendous for Spida. Next, I want to highlight Luka Doncic, who is, like I've said before, a video game character. He's had, in 1 week, he's had 4 games, including a 60-point triple-double, which was an overtime victory against our beloved Knicks. But Luka has been playing out of this world. I remember him saying that the NBA is easier for him than the EuroLeague. And I guess this is, that week of his scoring tear is showing that it is actually easy for him. Everything he does is just like effortlessly. He does it without effort. And lastly, the man who's beating Father Time, LeBron James. LeBron is the player of this week's Player of the Week. He's averaging 38 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Keeping it true to his LeBronism. He's been doing this for years and continues to do it in his advanced age. And looking like he'll probably play for another 5 to 6 years like this. So, gentlemen, out of these performances, who was your favorite? I'm gonna go with Luka personally, but
I think 70 points is pretty damn impressive.
yeah.
And mind you, I spit up a lot of defensive numbers. Cleveland actually has the best points allowed in the league right now. If Donovan Mitchell's going to drop 70 at 106, if Donovan Mitchell's going to drop 70 a game, obviously it's not going to be every night, but if he's going to do stuff like that, he can almost outscore the opposition by himself.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
We watched it.
Yeah.
So you got Spida.
Yeah, I'll take Spida.
All right, Greg.
You're not going to believe this, and I'm not even trying to be different from you guys. And I'll rarely, I'll give basically the Lakers a compliment as often as Haley's comment comes around. I will actually say LeBron, and here's my reason why. He's obviously been great lately. I know it's shocking, but their season's been teetering on the edge. If they went through another 6-game losing streak, they would have gotten to the point where they're almost out of it. He's carried them since Davis has been out. And that's even with, he's shooting abysmally from 3. He's kind of like, I saw there was the last 3 games, he's 1 for 16 combined from 3. But he hasn't tried more than 6, which, obviously at that percentage, he's under 30 in the year. But I will say he's definitely like kept them in the mix. So I think for relevance for the NBA season and how much he's meant in the last few weeks, I actually will give the nod to LeBron. Because again, if they do get in a playoff spot of any sort, which I'm still highly skeptical of that, I don't think they will. You can look back to this when AD went out and he basically saved their season. So I will give credit to LeBron.
Now the question is, does Shad take Luka or does he double down on someone else?
No, I'm definitely going to take Luka. Just because he's done something I don't think anybody's ever seen before with the 60, 21, and 10. And then just to even get them to that comeback victory, he pretty much got his own free throw and then made almost like a buzzer beating shot. Luka, I don't know. He's, like I said on a previous time, he might be top 10, player ever when it's all said and done, especially offensively. That team, he's pretty much everything. He sells the popcorn. He coaches. He's a parking lot attendant. He is that team. He's probably going to be more revered than Dirk, especially if he gets a championship. But Luka, to do something that nobody's ever done before, 60, 20, and 10. Those other performances, LeBron, great, you're doing that, age 38 years old. Spider was 70, but this was a complete game. This is something that's going to be up there as one of the best regular season performances ever, not just with the points, but, all around.
And Shad, I just want to thank you for continuing to make it personal, because that's 60, 20, and 10 intentionally missed free throw. That was all against the Knicks.
Yeah.
They beat us in overtime with that. So thanks, Shad. I appreciate that. I was trying to forget about it.
I didn't say that. I didn't bring up the Knicks, though, really. I didn't say New York. I wanted to, but I was making it more about Luka than it was against.
Yeah, I get it. Christmas
Knicks.
Is over. I get it.
I do want to have an honorable mention player in Klay Thompson, who had a phenomenal week and a half while Steph was out.
Talk about players that Shad loves to hate.
I mean, go ahead, keep them if you want to, but you ain't gonna get any better. You could have had, a King's ransom last year. Now you're gonna get damaged goods.
The haterade.
He already is damaged goods.
Yeah, but you could have got like a potential all-star young player. If you traded Klay last year, and now you're gonna get what? Maybe a late first round draft pick, and a ham sandwich. Yeah.
I just love, if I listen to Shad just on Klay Thompson, I think I'm watching Frank Ntilikina for the rest of his career. Like, if I didn't know who he was, I'm like, boy, this guy must really stink.
He doesn't stink, but he's at this point of his career, he's overrated. He's more on the name. Yes, you're a 4-time champ, all NBA how many times? Probably got to be like a 7 or 8-time all-star, but you're living off legacy right now. You're easily not a top 25 player in NBA right now. You're probably not even in the top 35. So, but just because you're on the Warriors, you're getting more clout than you really deserve. And yes, you're having, a few games here and there, but why are you? He's making a hell of a lot of money, which he deserved, for the way he played in the past. And, people thought he was going to be the Klay of old when he came back from his injury. And I think that was the time to trade him. And obviously he's, a good player. He's probably more like a B- player now, but, people thought he was going to still be like, that A- player, which he's clearly not. He's definitely not defensively that way anymore. He's always been kind of reliant for other people to get him shots, but now he definitely can't get his own shot, and he's just not athletic as much as he used to be anymore. Same thing goes with Draymond. So I'm not gonna just pick on Klay Thompson. Draymond's the same way.
Damaged goods.
Damaged goods.
I want to say damaged, but they're old goods. They're expired. They're stale.
Still
Sour milk. Sour milk.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take sour milk and a title if he was on my Knicks. I'll tell you that much. No, I get it. I get it just quickly that defensively you see it more, but I just did a quick. He's still averaging 20 and shooting 39 from 3. That's what we compare him to in the past, maybe, but that's no small potatoes. That's still pretty. And he made it back from 2. Major surgeries. Those weren't minor. Some guys miss 2 years; they're out for good. So, but hey, listen, just quick. That again, I'm Shad. As much as I'm countering everything you're saying on that, the Golden State does not look as good, but they don't need to be for 4 months. The West is. There's no great team in the West. So no. Do I think they're going to be the team that gets out of there? No. But do I think it's impossible if they get hot and healthy at the right time? Seem crazy, right?
Well, speaking of stinky and sour, One thing that's always stinky and sour is of course, the end of the show. But we got to say goodnight sometime. As always, find the show on its exclusive home right here on YouTube. Chat it up with us offline, Twitter and Instagram at Hoops Boys Pod. Big thanks to my co-host with the most, Oast, James the Jet, and our great guest expert analyst, Gregors and the Shaddillac. I, of course, am America's favorite bitch-ass white boy, CProc, and say goodnight. Kobe.